Today we meet with my favorite Vedic astrologer, Ashley of SunGoddessAshley.com. Now she's a full-time Vedic astrologer, tarot reader, dream interpreter, and also a psychic in the Los Angeles area. But she also has clients all over the globe that she meets with virtually. And Ashley is going to speak of a major Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of 2020 and what this means for us socially as well as personally. She's also going to speak of significant dates to be mindful of in the upcoming year. And Ashley feels best when she's able to be of service to others and loves to empower and inspire her clients through her reading space. Are you ready for today's informative talk? Well, let's go. Hi, Ashley. Welcome today.
Hi, thank you so much, Crystal, for having me.
Yeah, we're so grateful. So tell our viewers a little about yourself and then, of course, how your work called you.
Yeah, so I'm a Vedic astrologer and tarot reader. And I was drawn to learning astrology because it really represents the spiritual side of psychology, which was my major in college. So I also minored in biblical theology from a seminary school, which didn't happen to offer astrology. But I felt that astrology was the culmination of science, psychology, spirituality, basically everything that I had really wanted to learn. So I started learning Western tropical astrology on my own, just out of school, because it's more readily accessible in the US. And then when I discovered Vedic astrology, I really didn't look back. So I've been doing it ever since, and I just find it's become a part of my life. It's become a part of what I love to offer clients to help them become, help show them, this is who you truly are and help guide them.
I love that Vedic astrology just really, really resonated with you. Of course, I've had a session done by Ashley and I highly, highly recommend her. I felt after our session, Ashley, I just felt like everything that I was sort of carrying stress about completely just dissipated. It was like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. I'm exactly where I should be. For me, it was one of the best healings that I've had in quite some time. So for our viewers out there that may be thinking, so, there's Western astrology that they're probably most familiar with, right? They read their daily horoscope or however they access that, but they may not be familiar with Vedic astrology. So what's the difference between Western and Vedic?
There's a lot of differences between them. They're very different, but the main kind of boiled down differences is that Western tropical astrology is based on seasonal coordinates, seasonal mathematical coordinates of astronomy. Vedic astrology is based upon sidereal. So you have seasonal tropical astrology, and then you have sidereal Vedic astrology, which is basically based upon the stars. So we're looking at the actual constellations. That's the main difference. It's just the calculations and the measurement. There are a lot of other differences. Vedic astrology doesn't use the outer planets. Traditionally, the classic planets just go, they're the Navagrahas. So they go through Sun, Moon, which are the two luminaries, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then it stops at Saturn. And then we have Rahu and Ketu, which is the north node of the moon and south node of the moon. Tropical astrology uses these, but they also use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and other points, other asteroids like Vesta, Chiron, and things like that. Another major difference is that Western tropical astrology is based upon the sun and the 12 solar signs, whereas Vedic astrology is based upon the solar signs, but it's also lunar. So there's 12 sun signs and 27 moon signs, which are called lunar mansions or nakshatras. So the lunar calendars in other cultures are based upon Vedic astrology, which is the proper name of Vedic astrology is actually called Jyotish.
So how do you spell that?
Jyotish is Jyotish. And that's actually it's actually translated Sanskrit for the science of light. So the study of light, the study of the stars, really like the stars and the constellations are all light. So we're learning about the sky.
something that's coming in for me, of course, little messages that are coming in from you as we're speaking. So, as we're kind of in this time and space to where a lot of people are awakening to their multidimensional self, right? And we're starting to see a lot of our starseed, cousins coming in, and a lot of people really, really connecting to the stars and connecting to their star families. So I wonder perhaps if Vedic astrology is, I wonder if more people are going to start resonating with the style of Vedic astrology because we're connecting more with our star family. Has that come into your space?
I feel like yes, also because yoga
Mhm.
and Ayurveda and a lot of these Eastern healing arts have really permeated through the Western culture, and it's becoming more widespread and more well known.
Mhm.
So I do feel like Vedic astrology is going to become much more popular in the
Mhm.
West. It's really just so phenomenally accurate and just mind blowing what it really yields. It's just amazing. It's not just based on personality archetypes, it's really
Right.
the science of everything. And also, Vedic astrology isn't really just limited to your horoscope, it's the
Mhm.
study of everything in existence. So it's much deeper and much more spiritual than you could ever imagine. And once you open the door, you'll just learn so much of what else there is to learn. And I feel like that is a big appeal for sort of the spiritualist
Mhm.
kind of movement that we have going
Mhm.
now.
Well, I completely agree with you because I believe the words that, to quote myself after our session, was "You blew my mind." So, so it just felt so accurate. Everything that you're saying, it completely blew my mind, and it takes a lot to blow my mind
Oh,
because I am kind of overstimulated with all this knowledge, and it
mhm.
really did. I felt it was so accurate. So, Ashley, so what are you going to speak of today? And I'll hand it on over to you. You're the expert.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about today the major Jupiter Saturn conjunction of 2020. I'm going to be talking about why this is significant and what it means for us personally and socially. And I'll also share some of the significant dates that
Okay.
we should be mindful of in the upcoming year. I first wanted just to start off with where Saturn and Jupiter are going to be in the upcoming year.
Okay.
Basically, the star signs, the constellations that they will be in. So in 2020, Jupiter and Saturn will both be in Sagittarius and Capricorn constellations. So if you're reading from a tropical standpoint, you may have heard that Jupiter is already in Capricorn. It's not from a
Okay.
sidereal perspective. If you were to actually look at the sky, you would still see it's in the Sagittarius constellation. So at the start of 2020, Jupiter and Saturn will be in Sagittarius until Saturn enters Capricorn.
Okay.
So Saturn is actually further along. So Jupiter will be in Sagittarius, the sign it rules, while Saturn is in Capricorn, the sign it rules.
Okay.
Then Jupiter enters Capricorn, joining Saturn for a while until it stations retrograde and enters back into Sagittarius.
Ooh.
Then it stations direct again, enters back into Capricorn again. So it kind of does this dance
Yeah, that's
of,
exactly what I was picking up
yes.
energetically, this dance. Yeah.
Mhm. And we've heard a lot about the Mercury retrograde, right? That's a
Mhm.
common buzzword I'm sure you're familiar with.
Right.
So all of the planets actually go retrograde except for the sun and the moon, which
Mhm.
technically aren't planets, but we just call them planets for
Right.
ease of definition. But they're luminaries. But all of the other planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they all have their own retrograde periods.
Mhm.
So the closest to the sun, the planet that's closest to the sun, which is Mercury, actually stations retrograde the most frequently, which is probably
Mhm.
why it gets the most attention.
Mhm.
And then the planet that's farthest away from the sun, which is Saturn, actually stations retrograde the least frequent.
Okay.
So it doesn't get as much attention, and we can't feel it as much.
Uh-huh.
We feel it kind of on an undercurrent level, but it's not on like in our affecting our daily life where we're like, oh my gosh, I just feel the retrograde. When is it over?
Right.
Point being is that all of the planets actually do this retrograde motion, and then Rahu and Ketu which are the north and south nodes, they always are retrograde. They're always
Oh,
moving
interesting.
backwards.
Okay.
So when will these planets be conjunct? Actually, they conjunct every 20 years.
Oh, so not often.
This is a rare transit.
Sure.
So Jupiter is going to be in Sagittarius. Actually, it's there now from the 4th of November, which was when it started or entered Sagittarius of 2019, through the 19th of November 2020.
Almost a whole year. Yeah.
It's going to be basically the whole year. So the last, except for the retrograde motions. So the last time Jupiter was in Sagittarius was 12 years ago.
Okay.
And it's actually very strong because it's in its own sign. Jupiter owns Sagittarius. So it's a very powerful Jupiter. Saturn enters Capricorn on January 23rd.
Okay.
And it'll be late in the evening here in the west coast
of the United
Pacific
States.
time.
Yep.
So we have a new moon then on the 24th of January in Capricorn, which initiates the new Capricorn energy that will really be felt with Saturn entering Capricorn. So it's like right the next day or right within 24 hours, we have that new moon energy that sort of begins that cycle.
Sure.
Feel that Capricorn energy. And also I think on the 25th this year is the year of the, I think it's the Yang metal rat. Chinese New Year. So we have all of these new, so it's right, the new moon, the new beginning that we'll really feel with this sort
new
of
decade. I mean,
Saturn,
wow, that's
Saturn
intense.
comes home to Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. It'll really initiate a lot of new beginnings and what we'll start to feel for the rest of the year. So even though we're celebrating, the New Year 2020, we have all these like New Year's parties, we're really not going to be feeling like the new energy coming until the end of January. So then Jupiter enters Capricorn on March 29th.
Okay.
So it joins Saturn. This is going to be a pivotal day. So people who are listening,
March 29th,
circle their calendars, March 29th. Saturn begins its retrograde then in May 11th. Saturn goes retrograde in May and Jupiter goes retrograde in May.
Wow.
So Saturn initiates it. It's the beginning. Saturn starts it. So on May 11th, it starts to go retrograde in Capricorn. And then Jupiter turns retrograde on the 15th, just 4 days later, right before it reaches Saturn in Capricorn. So it's catching. So Saturn enters Capricorn, Jupiter enters Capricorn, and it starts approaching Saturn. And then Saturn goes retrograde. And right before they touch, Jupiter then ends up backing up and sort of running away. So it's sort of
it is a dance. It's very romantic. Yeah.
It's like, okay, not quite yet. That's another thing.
I got angel bumps with that. That's going to be interesting.
It's close to exact in May, but because of the retrograde planets, they don't actually meet by the exact degree. So when Jupiter is retrograde, it re-enters Sagittarius on June 29th.
Okay.
So it takes from May 25th to June 29th to kind of go backwards to hit that Sagittarius cusp point again. And then it turns direct in Sagittarius on September 11th. So then Saturn turns direct on September 28th in Capricorn. And it's been in Capricorn this whole, throughout the whole cycle without changing signs. So then Jupiter re-enters Capricorn on November 20th. Okay, that's where it begun to transit at the end of March before the retrograde. So it goes back over that territory.
Wow.
So this whole year is going to be sort of the shifting between Capricorn and Aquarius and Sagittarius energy. They finally make their exact conjunction by degree on December 21st.
On what day? I'm sorry?
December 21st.
Oh my gosh. The winter solstice. Yeah, winter solstice next year.
Yes. So it's at 6 degrees, 20 minutes Capricorn, sidereally. And this is the most potent part of this conjunction in 2020, as they will be in conjunction by exact degree at from December 1st through the end of the year. In Vedic astrology, a conjunction is defined by when two planets are occupying the same sign. So it's not just by exact degree only. So the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn will technically be from the windows of March 29th through June 29th. And then again, November 20th through 2021, which will sort of, with
Yeah.
that highlight point being December 21st, which, happens to be the winter solstice, as you mentioned.
Amazing.
Jupiter doesn't enter Aquarius until April 25th of 2021.
Okay.
But that energy kind of carries through 2020. Having said that, what does this mean?
Right. I'm dying.
Dates, and okay, you're like marking your calendar. Okay, what is the point here? So we'll start to kind of go through all of that. So what does Jupiter represent? Jupiter represents basically just generally expansion, growth, inspiration, hopes, beliefs. It represents teachers and philosophers. It represents justice and generosity and just things that are really benevolent and good in nature. Jupiter is really a beautiful energy. It's what is known as Dharma. It is the planet of right and correct action. That's all. It's all dharmic. So it's creating actions. It's creating good things. Then what Saturn represents is constriction, construction. It represents building and responsibility and hard work. It also represents boundaries and long periods, long durations of waiting. It can be foundations and structure, okay? Discipline, and really all things that are serious in nature. So Saturn is what is known as karma. It's definitely heavier, but ironically, it is the lightest planet by velocity. So if you were to put it in water, it would float. Saturn is the planet of accountability and reaping what we sow. Okay, people get so scared by this term of like karma, karmic retribution, but really we're reaping both good and bad, by the way.
Yeah.
You have good karma and you have bad karma. So that's kind of just an interesting thing to kind of note. And we don't always reap karma just in this life. We reap karma from past lives too. So we bring in good karma and bad karma from past lives as well. So what Jupiter in Sagittarius really does, okay, Jupiter first and foremost rules Sagittarius. It also rules Pisces, okay? So Sagittarius is the sign of learning, exploring other cultures, travel, breaking boundaries, and it can be dogmatic or religious, and it's spiritual, but in a kind of a religious context with how it has those parameters. Whereas Pisces is more spiritual, but in a more mystical sense. Religion and mysticism both have their place in the world without being really judged by us as like good or bad. They're just different. Jupiter in Sagittarius expands people's belief systems. There will be more knowledge spread. People will want to experience new things. They'll want to travel more. Foreign lands really come into play. And really learning about other people's cultures and worlds, religions. On the extreme sense, because there's always this polarity. You have like sort of the normal level of function, and then you have the two extremes. So on the extreme sense, because there are no boundaries here, it can be religious extremism and fanaticism. Religious fanaticism. Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
People just going wild and crazy about their belief systems because it's very preachy.
Sure.
It's the preacher, it's the teacher. It can be very helpful, but it can also be destructive, can coexist. So Jupiter and Capricorn, what does this mean? Okay. This is where the teacher or the guru has a chalkboard. Okay. So challenges and difficult lessons can come from this. This is the stern teacher, and he's a tough grader. So,
no curve
here, right? Exactly. So this is the teacher that wants you to show your work and not just give an answer about, well, I believe it. It's like, well, why do you believe it? How do you believe it? Show me the evidence.
I like that.
What you believe. Let's underline and circle some things here. Consequently, Capricorn is the sign that Saturn rules. And it is where Jupiter is debilitated. And every planet has signs of exaltation and debilitation. The planet of expansion starts to feel a little bit cramped or boxed in Saturn's sign, right? So on the extreme spectrum, this can be religious intolerance. Okay, or lack of tolerance for other people's ideas or beliefs or cultures. So you have a bit of a backlash here, right?
Sure.
So we see that Jupiter going through Sagittarius is all about religious beliefs and expansion and finding out new things and fanaticism. And then when it goes into Capricorn, it's sort of checked. It's like almost being intolerant of other people's belief systems. Because it's like, if you're so fanatical about what you believe and you believe it so much, then you start to become right and other people start to become wrong.
Yes.
Right? So that's
Sure.
really the main difference between Sagittarius and Pisces, where Pisces is like coexist.
Sure.
You know, like those bumper stickers that say like coexist with everyone's religion. It's sort of like, yes, I'll have my religion, I'll have my beliefs, but I'm respectful. I can believe. So that's the other side of Jupiter, where it can be very tolerant. Saturn in Sagittarius. Let's look now at what this means. So Saturn is actually still currently in Sagittarius. It's making its way towards the end here. But it's about making rules and regulations and policies concerning foreign lands. Okay, Sagittarius is the natural ruler of the ninth house of foreign lands, other cultures, trade, all of that. Yeah. So Saturn is all about rules and regulations, right? So there can be policies that are made at this time, which we've been seeing. Saturn in Sagittarius is also getting us to organize our beliefs.
Okay.
This is more on a personal level.
Okay.
Where we can assimilate and process our experiences. So it can be a great time of kind of paring down and extracting the unnecessary to really decide what's really important. And it is a decision.
I like that.
It is. That's how we can kind of use this transit to its most benefit, I guess, to benefit us the most. Basically, then we can talk then about what Saturn does in Capricorn. So Saturn rules Capricorn. So again, it feels comfortable with a plan. It likes having an action plan. It likes to get things done in a very systematic and organized and structured way, where there is a concrete tangible results, and it sees the progress step by step. So this can actually be a crystallization of systems and structures that will be in place for the next 28 to 30 years.
Wow.
Both individually in our personal lives and socially and collectively. That's kind of just the gist of what these planets in these signs really represent. So we can then kind of look and see now that we know this information, what does Jupiter and Saturn conjunction mean? What do they mean together? So let's look at how they function in the elements first.
Okay.
This will give us an idea. Saturn and Jupiter together in water signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. There is a religious and royal theme. So religions and royalty are closely tied. Okay. So when we looked back to this, and it's also sea voyages. So when you look back at like trade and sea voyages through ships of the Vikings in the 8th and 9th centuries, there was a destruction of culture for religion and royalty. So that's kind of the theme in water signs. Then Jupiter and Saturn in fire signs is patriotism and colonial empires of Spain and Russia. There are new territories and trading for military and new military weapons that are made at this time. So the religion and loyalty to the monarchy were still major factors here. But it becomes more colonial and military based. The fire element, right? Fire is like a warrior. Okay, so Sagittarius is the spiritual warrior. Sagittarius is in fire, which is the warrior, and it's also Jupiter rules, which is spirituality, spiritual warriors. It's wonderful. So then Saturn and Jupiter in Earth signs then promotes technology. And that's kind of what we're looking at with this conjunction here. Okay. In Sagittarius, we have the conjunction, but then we actually have the exact conjunction in the Earth sign. So Earth sign is actually more prevalent in 2020. So, these conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn together in Earth signs in 2020 really promotes technology, trade, and exchange. It promotes material resources, profit in business, commercialism and corporate banking, and its power over policy. And it can be trade wars as well. People wanting to kind of dominate territories for money and basically commercialism. So religion and history are weakened Okay, because Jupiter is
Interesting.
weaker in earth signs. Jupiter is weaker in earth signs because it rules water and fire,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Saturn rules air and earth. Okay, so Saturn has the upper hand here. Saturn and Jupiter at air signs. But this will be in the future, way in the future. But it really has to do with trade, commerce, communications, cultural exchanges, language and literature and art. Or if you see sort of a deterioration of like art programs in schools, and it's kind of like a renaissance or a rebirth of literature, languages being established, art, scientific ideas also being exchanged more at that time. It's the age of thought. So there's a desire to intermingle or kind of twine with other cultures rather than
Mm-hmm.
thwart them. Saturn and Jupiter, as I mentioned earlier, are conjunct every 20 years. So the last conjunction was in the year 2020, right? So it was in fire and earth signs, Aries and
Mm-hmm.
Taurus. Okay, the conjunction I believe was exact in Taurus. So the previous conjunction to that then was in 1980 in Leo and Virgo. This year of 2020, it's in Sagittarius and Capricorn.
Is it going to feel like a dance for people, feeling that duality throughout the year?
Yeah, I do feel like we're going to feel this duality. It's definitely a time of shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look and see what's happening this year, you have to look at history because history really repeats itself.
Right.
So I had learned from Edith Hathaway, which is another beautiful astrologer, that the Monetary Control Act of the Federal Reserve was made in 1980 when we had this
Interesting.
Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And it was conjunct in Virgo. In Virgo, it was actually in this nakshatra, the moon sign of Chitra. Chitra is about, it's a hand. It's represented by a hand, which is to grasp or control. This really allowed the government to basically make money out of nothing, promissory notes. And this is a perfect example of Saturn, Jupiter conjunction in Earth signs as they represent money and trade and
Comfort
business.
and yeah.
So we are already seeing issues coming up regarding new policies on trade with foreign cultures and immigration issues. By the way, Saturn is a wall. Jupiter breaks down walls. So in 1961, the Berlin Wall was constructed and it came down in 1989. This whole controversial build a wall theme has come into play recently with this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Remember, Saturn is walls and boundaries, and Jupiter breaks down walls and boundaries. Now, without placing judgment on whether this is good or bad, I'm not here to make judgments or like have a political stance, really. I mean, I do have my own personal opinion.
Right.
For the sake of just the astrology talk here of what Jupiter does and what Saturn does, they both have their functions, and everything is just a different player. It's just a different kind of role in this movie or this play.
So it sounds like, of course, when we're in the US, and of course we've got a big political year coming up, we are in the middle of a lot of things happening within us in our environment as well as our political structure. And so it sounds like it will be a big year of a lot of shifting, a lot of changing, according to really history repeating itself. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yes. And we're still in the middle of it, and we're still looking at it. And I believe one of the reasons the wall, which is Saturn, hasn't become successful so far is because it's been going through Sagittarius, but it's also been with K2. K2 is like a black hole. It kind of removes things. It's sort of deconstruction. So yes, Jupiter can jump over a wall. It can kind of go sort of expand beyond that. The K2 doesn't allow a wall in the first place. Now, when K2 actually enters the sign of Scorpio in September of 2020, that's when Jupiter's blessings can really be given to us, because Jupiter will be not under the influence of K2 anymore.
So let's talk about this then on a personal level. So everyone listening to this on a personal level, is this a great time to, start projects, start relationships, start new things?
The Jupiter and Saturn conjunction does, astrologically, and then we can apply it to a
Okay.
more personal level.
Yeah.
So Jupiter and Saturn conjunction is what is called in Vedic astrology is Graha Yuddha. Okay, Graha Yuddha is a term that means planetary war. So it's a term for when two planets have opposing agendas that come together within 1 degree of each other.
Okay.
Saturn is always the winner. So Saturn's victory is maximized in earth and air signs, especially in Capricorn, and Jupiter's loss is minimized in fire and water signs, especially Sagittarius. Themes of these would be what we've seen already, would be the Christian movement sort of deteriorating, Notre Dame as well, the fire of Notre Dame.
Sure.
It's in a fire sign, and we have Jupiter, which is religious places. Investigative journalism, because journalism and sort of sharing news, kind of publishing is all Sagittarius, all Jupiter. So in corporations that rule the 1%, there will be a rise of citizen journalism in this time.
Okay.
So for us, it's important for us to ask, like, what is our truth? Does that really, we're going to have to really be a lot of good editors in this time. So we can ask, what does this feel true to me? Is this really the truth? Does it sit within my core? So it's important for us to ask really, what is our truth?
Really connect with ourselves, really sort of maybe, I know it's a big year for psychic abilities coming out and people really plugging into their intuition. So probably now more than ever, really listen to your gut instinct and really plug into yourself.
Jupiter in Sagittarius is definitely about seeking spirituality. And that's great if that's what you're trying to do. If you're not trying to seek spirituality, this can be uncomfortable. Right? This transit. So a lot of viewers, I'm sure, are going to be in that modality of seeking that spiritual truths and wanting to learn more about spirituality and all of that. So I feel like this would be an easier time. It's just sort of, what do you yield to?
Right.
So, and it's also really routines. So routines with Saturn, right? So what routines have become a way of life for us that are we really trying to break through and grow? So what is outdated in our lives? What behaviors and actions and beliefs have been modeled for us that are really no longer appropriate for us to follow? It's 2020 is really the time. It's the year for us to face these things head on, and it will be a year of miracles and breakthroughs. I see just sort of this vision of like the eagle crashing and burning for the phoenix to then rise from the ashes, much stronger, much more powerful. So collectively, I think that there's kind of socially, collectively, there's a conflict of interest of what Saturn is trying to do and what Jupiter is trying to do, because there's that Graha Yuddha. So they're at odds. We're going to see this clash more so now than ever in the Democratic and Republican parties. And this might be the presidency that ends the electoral college. Just saying. Personal level, spiritual seeking, there's going to be probably a lot more people that will show interest in Vedic astrology and the metaphysical arts. And then in 2020, really, I would say when the times that Jupiter and Saturn are both in Capricorn is going to be a great time for business. Jupiter in Sagittarius would be a great time for promoting and publication. Reaping the dividends and the rewards of your efforts will be Jupiter in Capricorn. It's more of like a monetary reward for what you've been doing. So if you're going to start something, it would be we'll start now, of course. Saturn enters Capricorn on January 23rd, and we have that new moon. I would say even a couple days. You don't really want to start something on a dark moon, on a new moon. You really want to wait until like the day after traction, because it's a good time for sort of going within and figuring out what you want to do. But then the day or two after the new moon is really time to take action and plan.
I love that.
Basically, it would be a really great time to do anything that you want to see really structured for the next, consider it a Saturn return. We all have these in our charts, and they come every 29 or so years. But really, this is really laying the foundation of what your purpose is going to be for the next 30 years. It's a big one.
It's
So
huge.
if you're in alignment with your truth and you're in alignment with what you believe that you should be doing and your purpose, you're not going to have a hard time with this. You're going to be
Mhm.
right on track. You're going to see the benefits and you're going to see the rewards, and it's going to be very rewarding to see other people doing that as well. It's really just going to be a time of like breakthroughs and miracles just in general. So in
Mhm.
2020 predictions with the significant dates, we did talk about this already. So the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the Earth sign of Capricorn will be from March 29th through June
Mhm.
29th and
Mhm.
November 20th through April 25th, 2021. Again, the highlight or sort of that PowerPoint is on the winter solstice, major date in major date
Yeah.
in 2020. And by the way, the winter solstice is the 3 days where the sun is at its lowest point in the sky. So
Mhm.
it really indicates the dead of winter,
Mhm.
where the days are the coldest and the light is the shortest and the darkest. There's really a shortage of sunlight. So that's the element that gives life to us. So it's really time to go within
Yeah.
during that period. So astrologically speaking, this will be the center of the chrysalis before the
Wow.
butterfly really comes into bloom. So 2020, we have this sort of power house of like that phoenix really just uh, kind of in full bloom, go back into everything is cyclical. So we have a sort of
Mhm.
another sort of PowerPoint to then become stronger, become an even bigger phoenix in 2021.
I'm already thinking, well, I can't wait for your predictions for 2021 and for us to be sitting here a year from today because we're actually
Yeah.
stepping up into the winter solstice in just a couple days. So, uh,
Mhm.
that's just amazing. Wow. And so that is just given, of course, hopefully our viewers and me, I mean, I love being a student to all of this. I was so excited to sit here today with you, Ashley, because I know that I always learn from you, and I love learning. And I'm definitely marking my calendar on those dates because it's going to be
Mhm.
pretty. I'm excited for this year. It sounds like when
Mhm.
you were describing Jupiter, it just felt like a nice warm blanket.
Yes. I mean, I love Jupiter. He's definitely wants the best for us and wants us to grow and get out of our comfort zones. I
Yeah, which we're
you
doing.
know, this in general, this I gave sort of like the general kind of implications of what this would be, but everybody is impacted slightly differently.
Right.
Of course, living your truth and in good in business, it's going to be sort of a universal theme, and it will
Hmm.
be also affect us individually. But
Hmm.
wherever this transits through your chart is going to affect that area of your life
Hmm.
also. Okay. And we have to also look at, you know, whether in your chart is Jupiter active, is Saturn active? Are you going through a Saturn return? Are you going through a Jupiter return or an opposition? What is really happening in your chart that will customize and you can give you more detail
Hmm.
on how it's happening like from person to person. So if you want to get a personalized reading from me,
Yeah, let's
um,
talk about your offers
okay,
because since we're
yes.
on that, and everyone, I highly, highly recommend. I mean, Ashley, with all of my heart, I recommend you. So let's talk about how people can find you
Yeah.
and how can they could take advantage of your reading space and learning more about their 2020.
Yes, absolutely. So I do offer Vedic astrology consultations through my website. You can find me at www.sungoddessashley.com, and I have my whole range of services there. You can email me through the website, or you can also email me through Gmail, sungoddessashley@gmail.com. For the summit, I will be offering a special discounted rate of chart readings. It's 1 hour and it's going to be $100. So you'll save $50
It's
for this.
amazing.
Um, yeah, it's a pretty good
It's
deal.
amazing.
Yeah. And it's jam packed with information. I don't just look at your natal chart. I also look at transits, and I do predictive work for the future too. So it's very well rounded.
Hmm.
And then as a gift, I will go ahead and email people who want to take usage of this opportunity a copy of their natal chart in the wheel circular format, also in the North Indian style chart and the South Indian style chart. So what we
Amazing.
see in our session, you'll get a copy of that.
And I know you're going to offer this for a limited time.
Yes, so I was planning on offering this for up to 3 months. So if you want to take
Good.
advantage of this good deal, you've got a nice 3-month window to do so.
But book as soon as possible, because I promise you, you're going to have so much clarity. Yeah. So are there any last words for our viewers that you'd like to mention, Ashley?
I personally am excited for 2020. It's going to be a lot easier without the Saturn K2 conjunction. So that was 2019 was a rough year. It was challenging. It was, and I
It
feel
was
like
a
for a lot of us,
tough decade.
it was hard to gain traction, and that crystallization of just like the energy really staying and having that staying power is Saturn. And with K2 there, it was like anything you tried to start, it was just like it just sort of fell through. So
Wah,
I'm really
wah.
looking forward to like seeing results of efforts.
Yeah, reaping what you sow. Yeah.
I'm really excited for it
Hmm.
personally. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. Of course, we can't wait to have you back. I hope you're going to be a regular at our summits, and no pressure.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to do this again with you anytime. And yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. We're so, so grateful. We thank everyone. Happy 2020.